Amelie, Amelie, how do you pronounce that?
Amélie.
Amelie is a pretty awesome film, even though it is made by the French. But trust me, guys, these French people know how to make movies. I can't think of another one. Oh yeah, Martyrs. That's a good movie. It's a little flawed, but that's a French film, and that's a good film. But anyways, just in terms of like the way this film is shot and the excellent storytelling and the likable characters, it's just all around a great film. But I think, while not the most important aspect of the film, the cinematography is great. But before I go over that, I have to go over the plot. Yes, I know, the worst part of my videos. But it'll be quick, I promise. So the basic plot of Amelie is that this girl named Amelie is kind of obsessed with the small pleasures in life because she can't say that word. Basically, she finds her calling, which is just teaching people how to love things, which, starts with this like old man in his box. But later, towards the end of the story, she falls in love with this guy that she went to school with. He was a little bit of a loser, and basically she like sends him on this quest because she heard that he had commitment issues with his relationships. And towards the end, she helps resolve like some relationships with like the old man and the guy who owned the shop. It's a pretty simple plot, but I think a lot of the value comes from the themes and the style and the way that a film is shot. I think it really dictate an audience's perspective and overall experience during the film. Like, horror movies are definitely shot differently to things like comedies or even lit separately. And I think Amelie is, like, if I could put the way it's shot in one word, I would say energetic. There's always that somewhat, Wes Anderson-esque head turn, that's very stylistic to him. Quick move-ins, zoom-ins. It just gives you this great idea of like this energy. It's like it's like a fairy tale. That's what it's been, commonly described by the people. Which is something that this film has been called, multiple times. It's been like kind of described as a like kind of like fantasy-esque.
Or at least a much cleaner, much more magical version of Paris done in reality.
The film includes a whimsical depiction of Parisian life.
But that's like a whole another thing. But I definitely will later. I will get into how I think the colors relate into that, but that's later. So anyways, the next thing is framing. With a lot of this film, I see a lot of the framing, comes down the middle, and usually that is pleasing to like the human brain, which personally I think kind of plays into this overall theme of the film, which is pleasure. And I think the small things and the big things that'll please you. But I think overall, I don't know if this is done on purpose, but it's fun to watch, and it makes you feel good, and I think that's why they picked the symmetry kind of lighting, because the whole idea of the film is that it's like fairy tale, that they want it to be like a feel-good film. I'm not saying objectively that's what it is. This is just my interpretation. I'm not being The Shining, people.
My eye is drawn to it, and I realize that's not a skier. That's a minotaur. It just leaped out at me, and so that was something that I was able to look at later on VHS and say, yes, I had actually seen a minotaur there.
Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting was the choice of framing inside of the lonely old man's house. I can't remember what his name is. Something French. But basically, whenever they were in his house, they would, like, I think purposely, they would cut the top of people's heads off. Not literally in the frame. They would cut people's heads off in the frame. They'd cut their legs off, and it would be kind of weird, and it would make you kind of feel cramped, you know. And I think that's kind of what they wanted us to feel. Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting was the shop owner, and there's this really cool shot where his son like left him, I think, and he was just sitting there, and he was like on the phone. He was going crazy because of just how quiet it was, and there was this awesome shot just zooming out with him just sitting on his table, giving us like this idea of isolation. That's all I have to say about, you know, framing with this movie. And now all I have left is I think, at least from what I took away, is that there are three main colors: green, yellow, and red. Personally, I think red also is used to, you know, help things pop out to the audience, like her mother's purse and like doors and stuff. But I also think it represents love, and I think yellow represents happiness and joy, and I think green represents nature, which I think kind of plays into like all the themes of this film, you know, like, you know, the joy of like Amelie and how she brings it to other people, and love and her showing people how to love. I'm not quite sure about nature, but I think it's definitely had a big part in her life. But that's kind of all I have to say about this film. It's really good, but just in terms of framing and the way it's shot, there really isn't a lot. It's definitely a great film, and if I could like break it down with all the things I loved, it would take hours. But you're not here for that. But thank you for watching. Subscribe.